All right, welcome to Girls Need Love, the podcast where faith stops pretending and healing tells the truth. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Chanel.
And before we jump into anything deep, we want to start the way we'll start every episode, just arriving honestly. No performance.
No pretending like we have everything figured out.
Just presence. So Chanel, how are you arriving today, honey?
I am arriving on fire today.
Come on fire.
Hello and
My
good
God, my
night.
God.
How about you,
No.
Melissa? How are you arriving today?
You can't just skirt past on fire. Okay, so I'm very curious.
Inquisitive girly pop. So, before we go any further, let's just slow down for a sec, okay?
Wherever you're listening from, your car, your couch, your walk around the neighborhood, we love the steps. Take one slow breath with us.
Inhale.
Exhale.
Nothing to fix,
Nothing to prove.
just presence.
Amen.
So today, we're going to get into a topic that is scrum-diddly-yamshus.
Yes.
Essentially, we're going to be addressing how to untangle mental health care, how that's attached to spiritual guilt, and how we often fear doing faith wrong. So we want to address this one because I enjoy therapy. Melissa is a licensed psychologist, but I do know that therapy is widely embraced by millennials and particularly those who are younger than us. However, I think it's still something worth unpacking. So my thoughts about therapy: 10 out of 10 will recommend. It's giving A1, it's giving on top, all of the things. Because I've seen how the therapeutic process, how a licensed clinician has caused my mind to fill in the gaps of things that were not supplemented. And I want to be careful with this. Hold on, saints. That I got out of therapy, my own prayer time, and spiritual practices overall.
Yep.
Right? So, Melissa, what do you think about that?
Whew, like all of that, child. I think when you touched on the stigma being removed, I think for a certain generation group, let's just say it. Girl, the church mothers are like, we are not pleased. I think that when we moved into a space where, and I know on the last episode we talked about just pray about it was not something that you could just keep pushing off. Because yes, I can pray about it, but life keeps coming at me and it's spiraling, child. So I think therapy is a necessary supplement, but I also believe that it is a tool that God gave us. So why not use it? That's what I got.
Thank you for sharing that. So at this point, we want to take our time, okay, and go beyond the surface and really get to the crux of the matter. I mean, the crux.
Wind it down, okay? We're definitely going to laugh, but we want to share our humanity too. So let's talk about it.
No fixing, just honest conversation. So let's get into it. Why do we think that therapy may be synonymous with spiritual failure, Melissa?
Oh, you coming right out the gate. You said it was fire all in it. Okay. Therapy being synonymous with spiritual failure. I mean, when we move into, like, I think for some people, therapy might be plan B, right?
Okay.
I think for a certain age group, pray about it was plan A, right? But I think we're not looking at the pray about it and therapy going hand in hand, right? Because I think like when I get down on my knees and I'm praying and I'm asking for wisdom, I'm asking for clarity or understanding, maybe the wisdom that comes, God is like, yes, I need you to seek help, right? I need you to seek therapy, or here are the tools that, I have graced you with, or there is a person that, is going to be able to help you with this. And so I think that it is not a this or that, but I think the reason it has been, synonymous with this spiritual failure is that because we have seen it as, well, okay, I prayed about it, nothing happened, right? I prayed about it, nothing changed.
Right.
So let me try plan B, which steps more into this, psychological space, right? Or this physical space where you're like, well, is God big enough for what I'm dealing with right now. Maybe he doesn't see what I'm going through. And I think it's that language of, this is a plan B option.
I think for me, answer it in two ways. So the first way is, I think that therapy is viewed as a spiritual failure because when you are raised in the particular context that I was raised in, there's this expectation of a reliance on the Holy Spirit kind of identifying himself or presenting himself as miracle signs and wonders.
Mm-hmm.
So healing is part of that, right? So naturally, if something is wrong with me, whether that be a physical situation or emotional situation, I expect that if I make my request known, that I'm going to be made well. Now, made well, I mean, that definition is very specific to the individual, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when you feel the feeling again, when you are overwhelmed and confronted by it again, because it usually does, I guess, present itself or confront you, then I assume that this is a failure.
Right.
I will also say, I'll leave that for later. I'll leave that topic for later. But I think that that's really why I think that we attribute spiritual failure, because it's not getting done.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have not overcome, and if I never experience this thing again, I do not have the victory. Therefore, that's a failure, because success equals victory.
But you could be, so even in that, right? Like when because I'm still seeing it as this combating, right? Tool where it's like, I see prayer, and I see, prayer being able to do X, Y, and Z, right? But if it doesn't, like you said, if you don't get that triumphant, right, language at the end of it, or there's no the victory, right, as you say, then I've got to try something else. And I think in our society I've got to try something else. But prayer for us is not the last resort, but it can lead to something that can add language, add understanding, and add a way to where your testimony then becomes a healing for someone else, right? Because like, what if, I'm just like, I think it is. It's seen as that because we're pitting them against each other, right? We're pitting the spiritual against the psychological, when I'm like, but it was a tool that he gave us, or it can be a tool that he gave us.
I mean, I will say in my experience, it was, so I went both routes. I went to a therapist at one point who, she acknowledged, I guess, that she believed in God or something like that, but she believed in a lot of different things that were not in alignment with my belief system, because I was like, well, maybe this person will be best. They just kind of didn't work out for me. And the next time that I decided to seek out a therapist, it was important that they identified as a follower of Christ, because I did not want to censor part of my life. That was very important, right? Being a Christian is a foundational aspect of me. So I want to be able to speak very freely about that, because I need a therapist to be aware of these things so they can inform whatever it is they need to inform. So for me, I will say having a therapist who is yielded and submitted to the same God that I'm submitted to has provided clarity. Again, going back to my first point about filling in the gaps, which informs what I need to pray about. So, for example, there's a situation that I brought up. I'm not going to tell my business. Hello.
Come on now.
But I went to her, and she was talking about a particular system that I belong to of people. And she said, Chanel, as your homeostasis gets back to not the way that you were socialized or conditioned or groomed to be, but when it comes back to the place where it has always intentioned to be, if I said that correctly, you will start seeing that people's behaviors and their responses are going to be different based on the fact that your homeostasis looks very differently. Now I started wondering, well, why is this person being hostile, and why are they acting weird, or why are they acting funny? Because my homeostasis looked different than it did a year and a
Yeah.
half ago.
Right.
Now that informs me every time that I go to the Lord in prayer, like, okay, God, well, I need you to help me to not be so avoidant in conflict. Help me, give me boldness, so that I can address things the way that they need to be addressed, and not be a coward, but kind of hide myself because I'm
Right.
asking for what I need, or I need to address something that needs to be addressed. If
Right.
if the homeostasis conversation was not brought up in therapy, then I would not have any context for what to pray. I would continue resolving conflict the way that I did by
Yeah.
not resolving it. Because I'm like, you
Right.
know what? I'm done. And I would continue this
Exactly.
attitude of, I'm a cut off Carol. I'm going to
Right.
cut you off. I'm going to be silent, and that's it. So I think that in a practical sense, that's why therapy works in tandem with spirituality as well. It's not one or the other, it's both. And because one informs my spiritual, I guess, nature or history,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah. When we're looking at, the trauma, the emotional regulation, we're looking at triggers, we're looking at all of those things. The path is to move from the fragmented self into the wholeness.
Yes.
Right? Like we're moving from fragmentation to wholeness. And so even with the language that you were given, through your therapy sessions, or, through those times where you're being very introspective, right? And you're saying, okay, the way that I have dealt with this in the past. So like when you reached that point of homeostasis, now you can easily get yourself out of that homeostasis by going back and doing some of the things that caused you to be dysregulated in the first place, right? But the beauty of your therapy and your spirituality, right? So your prayer life was that it was giving you language on both sides.
Yeah.
Right? It was opening your eyes. It was the level of conviction that you felt when you realized that, okay, maybe through some of the things that I have been doing, I have let unforgiveness sit in my heart, or I have let avoidant behaviors when God has come to make me whole, right? So like, it's like praying for well-being, but then going out and doing all the things that make you fragmented, right? So like doing all the things that don't make you well. And the therapy was like, okay, what you prayed for, this is a way that it can actually be manifesting in how you're showing up, right? So it was also giving you the ability to say, okay, I'm praying for this thing, but I'm doing things that are contradictory to that. So maybe stop doing that. So I think the language and the behavior was leading to actual transformation. So yeah, that's what I got.
I think, and I'll say one more thing before I ask the other question. So in therapy, while I was a therapist, but then also just in therapy in general, there are, I forgot what they're called. Oh Lord, I think there are 10 or 15 of them. I forgot the term. If you remember, let me know at some point during this conversation. But there is catastrophizing, right? I think they're the defense mechanism or something like that, where you just expect calamity. Like no matter what. And again, going back to last week about spiritual bypassing, we could consider that to be, this is warfare. This is Satan. This is the enemy. This is the devil. When really maybe some aspects of our lives do not look the way that we want them to, because we are just not expectant for anything good to happen.
Right.
So being in the therapy room really addresses, hey, I see that you have a pattern of catastrophizing and pessimism. Where does that come from? Tell me about that. Why do you expect the absolute worst to happen? And now that's forcing me to look at myself, but then also look at who God is. What is the character of God?
Yes.
Which is directly tied to my identity. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Tied to, these lenses and these filters, right? That you have learned how to move throughout the world, learn how to move throughout, these spaces that you belong to or don't belong to, right? They actually alter your personality and they alter how you see God, how you see yourself, how you see the world around you. And so, yes, but through therapy, you're able to then say, okay, I have been processing it this way, and that is not healthy. because it does also change the type of prayers that I pray.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I see God as a merciful God, as a loving God, then I'm coming to God as my father, right? Or if I have a hard relationship with my father, maybe I don't come to God as my father. And so I think it is being able to move from the fragmented self, the fragmented operating system, right? That we have. And it is not the just pray about it, but it is pray about it. And then when you get up from the floor, I'm sure that God has given you a strategy. God wants you to be whole. And so what could that look like?
Mm-hmm.
There's a young lady that I'm just like, I am praying that she does seek a therapist, right? Because I think that some of the things that she has gone through that are just so traumatic, it is not just the, yes, I'm holding you in prayer. My God, today, right? Intercessory all day.
Right.
But also, there are things that you need help navigating that you're processing as if you are still in the thing that you have been delivered from. Right? It's like opening up the jail cell and saying you can go, but then still sitting there.
I think that therapy also gives you language on how to deal with the practicality of what's happening so that you can work towards wholeness. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a particular environment that I kept going to, and every time I would be sweating profusely, my stomach would be in knots, I would be nervous, and that happened for years until I think I brought it up to you maybe a few weeks ago, and you're just like, it's giving, why are you always nervous and what's going on? Because I did not acknowledge that this environment was tied to so many things that were just very difficult for me that I never addressed because I thought it was normal. So being exposed in a therapy space gives you language for, oh, this was a trigger, or oh, this was hard for me. What am I going to do moving forward? Do I completely avoid this environment? In the event that I'm unable to avoid this environment, what am I going to do? Because it's building up my tolerance in the event that I can't avoid it, right? You see what I'm saying? So when we're talking about abuse, I'm not going to the family reunion. You won't see me there because I'm unsafe. But when we're talking about environments that are unavoidable, you are going to have to engage again and reintegrate yourself into again. Therapy gives you like, oh, this is why I feel sick to my stomach. This is why my chest feels tight. And what am I going to do moving forward? But then I can go to God and say, God, listen, help me. HELP.
You got language though.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yes, I recognize that the word says he certainly makes intercession on our behalf, right? Words that we don't even know, like, Father, I don't even know what to pray. But also imagine when you do know what to pray, because you now have language for it. And so you can't just keep saying, well, this is warfare, because imagine if it is something that God is shedding light on so that it can be changed, because it is the thing holding you back. Because yes, I do believe that he has all power in his hand, right? But I'm like, our faith has to walk. Our faith has to move. And so if I get down on my knees, because I have been to the therapist and now I'm like, I got some language for this thing, right? It's not just a matter of, I'm being spiritually attacked. You could very well be spiritually attacked as well. But also, maybe you are causing some of the delay, some of the challenges, some of the things that if we are able to heal from that, if we are able to move on from that, if we are able to forgive, like whatever the barrier is, if we're able to get through it, then we can move on to the next thing. But I do believe that therapy allows you to also have those words that you didn't have words for. Because I can keep saying that, well, my coworker is the problem, but also like, that's not how I pray. I'm not, Father, fix them. Father, fix them, right? Like that's not even the prayer we're trying to pray, right? Because what if it is something that it's like, maybe they're responding to you because you respond to them a certain way, right? And the prayer has never just been, Father, fix them. No.
I'm the problem, Lord.
Maybe, right? You very well might be. And what does that look like in terms of him bringing you to wholeness? So yes,
Oh,
girl.
okay. Now, I don't know if you have anything on the top of your head, but this might but just be merely anecdotal. How do we know if God is trying to shed light on something versus spiritual attack and or spiritual warfare?
But I think both do that,
Okay.
right? They definitely shed light in an area. So, um, I think there are situations that it certainly feels like a spiritual attack, but does it not shed light in an area? Because it's like, it's something that just keeps happening,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's something that you're like, yo, where did this come from? But the light has been shown on it now.
Mm.
And so your focus goes to, okay, is you need to take that stock, right? Like I remember when we talked about you doing, look, for the girlies, you doing that audit that we talked about. Remember that? So that was an area that I think with this hyper spiritual language, we could have been like, okay, well, maybe this is a generational issue, right? Maybe this is something that is just so spiritual and I just need to lay on my face about it. Like, fantastic, right? Lay on your face about it. But also when you get up, you still have to do the audit, right? Because he has shed light on the relationships in your life and not all of them being healthy. Not all of them being like, there was some cutting that needed to happen. And so, sure, right? Spiritual, because maybe there are some people that have attached themselves to you, right? They on assignment, they doing whatever they doing, right? You know, demons got a demon. And but at the end of the day, you're also on assignment to do what the Father has willed you to do. And so it's like, either way, you still got to take the audit. So spiritual or natural, he's given you some tools to say, I need to evaluate this. That's what
Oof. Okay.
the light has been shown.
Got it. So, moving this conversation along, what else? What else are we thinking about when it comes to therapy in general? Like,
Right. So how have we seen spiritual language unintentionally shame healing practices? Let's call a thing a thing. Do we frame medication, having a mental health diagnosis, or setting boundaries as weak faith?
oh, well, it's interesting because I often get confused whenever I do hear those or other individuals who consider themselves to be of the Christian faith say things like, well, I believe in therapy, but, or saints ought not to be depressed, or I'm not saying don't take your medication, but there's this weird lack of follow-up about what you want me to do. You're saying, yeah, take your medication. I'm not saying don't do it, but there's this like, okay, so there's this gap of, okay, so is God gonna do it? How do we fill the gap? What do I do next? And it's just not highly developed. And this is the thought that I had earlier that I wanted to say for now. In Black church studies and even introduction to Black church worship, one of the things that I've been learning is about the brush harbors, so where enslaved people would go to worship and to pray because they did not have the freedom to do so because they were obviously enslaved.
Right.
And when I think about that being our history, if we're just talking about the Black church context, we don't know what we are not exposed to. I know nothing else. My family is Jamaican, so I mean, what I know is Jamaican culture. What I know is reggae music. What I know is oxtail and white rice and broad bean and red pea soup. Like, that's what I know. Until I start going to school and I start having conversations and I start befriending other people who look differently than I do, who speak differently than I do, who eat different foods than I do. That's when I think that my worldview expands. So it's almost like, okay, so we don't want people to be sick or to not feel well. And it's like, I'm not saying don't go to therapy, but like, God's a wonder. Ha, da bo sha.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but what does his wonder do in this moment to help me navigate through suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, the fact that I smell the smell that triggered me and now I'm spiraling and now I have racing thoughts and I haven't been sleeping for 3 days. Like what does that do?
But have more faith. Have more faith.
Right.
No. Have you prayed about it? Like that immediately being the response, I think unintentionally silences people who are hurting, right? Because those of us in the faith, out of the faith, clinicians, non-clinicians, like if you haven't realized, healing is slow, it's layered, and it's relational. But when I am so quick with that, right? Because I do believe spiritual language is very powerful. It's very powerful. But when we are going through what we are going through, what is my ability to hear what you're actually saying? And I don't think people stop to like actually realize that, right? I think that again, when we are quick with the answers, right? Because we live in the constant state of, okay, well, I gotta have all the perfect language. I gotta have, and maybe not the perfect, I gotta have the churchy language, right? I gotta have the spiritual language because this is the space that we're in, right? So a lot of times it usually is when you have encountered somebody in the ministry, right? And you're like, thank you, goodbye, right? What is my ability to hear what you're saying? I'm currently, my house is on fire. And you're telling me, like, my house is currently on fire. And you're telling me, oh, well, have you prayed about it? What do you think the likelihood of me hearing what you just said? What's the likelihood of that? My house is on fire, right? There's a leak in this old building, right? And my soul has got to move. And you're talking about have more faith in this current moment.
Well, to be fair, right, like that could be criticized as an extreme example. Because what I feel in my heart or what's going on in my emotions may not be as prevalent. It's not seen as much, right? So, what do I do then? Which is something that I'm just throwing out there. But it makes me think about, if we really want to be whole, it requires, well, for me, I'll only speak for myself, it required humility. And it required honesty with myself and honesty with my therapist at one point, and probably another trusted person.
Right.
Part of the reason why I started going to therapy a few years ago before I switched therapists was because I was working for a job, very, very heavy documentation. Sometimes I would be working until 7 and 8 o'clock at night and I still was not finished. The sound of like the email coming through, the notification, I would start panicking and my chest started getting very tight. And I remember I just casually said to my therapist, not thinking it was an issue, because it was just like, well, this is just what it is. And I was telling her, yeah, I'm having trouble breathing. And she's like, that's a problem. But then I remember when it happened the very first time, I'd have been like 15, 16 or 17, somewhere around that age. And I remember I shared it with somebody. They're like, oh, just pray, just pray, just pray. And I don't remember how long after, I guess, that kind of lifted. And when I brought it to a therapist years ago, she was like, I'm not saying that you necessarily have an anxiety disorder, but I am saying you struggle with anxiety. And I was so offended. Because how dare you? I am strong. I am a Black woman. I am saved. I have the Holy Ghost. What do you mean I struggle with anxiety? Nah, sis. That's not how this goes.
Yeah.
But I realized, okay, Chanel, you have to be honest. How does anxiety present in your body? How is that showing up? Tightness of chest. You feel like you're getting dizzy. You feel like your stomach is in knots. You feel like you're going to be sick. What is it attached to? When I'm feeling extremely overwhelmed at work and I literally have no plan on how I'm going to get out of this work hole. When you have to budget the monies. Budgeting is very overwhelming and very stressful for me. And I think that my wholeness or my journey to wholeness was linked to me being honest about the fact that, Chanel, you are struggling with this and this is how it's showing up in your life and you need to talk to somebody about it. And that's not failure. That is wisdom. That is
But
prudence.
you learned how to live with it.
Mm.
So you know how, like, even when you showed up to, and so yes, you saw a certain amount of signs, right? To where you was like, okay, I know I need to see a therapist, or you were already seeing the therapist, but you had learned how to live with it. And you know what it makes me think of? Jesus heals the paralyzed man, right? So 38 years at the pool, and he's like, get up, pick up your mat and walk. But before he did that, he was just like, do you want to be whole? Because I think that there are certain things that we have learned to live with. And so, when I think about the question, I'm like, framing medication, having a mental health diagnosis, and setting boundaries, and it being viewed, right, being viewed in the church, or being viewed in our spiritual communities, right? So like, even when we look at the social diaspora of this thing, right? So like, we had gotten into some of these conversations in take it back to Black church studies. So like, when we talked about even just our attitudes and our behaviors that we have taken even out of the church, right? Like, how do we look at mental health right now? There's still a stigma around it. So of course you throw it into the mix where, but God is the healer, right? Like, I understand that God is the healer, right? But also, what are some of the situations that you have just learned to deal with, to live with, because maybe you didn't even believe that for yourself?
Oh,
I know. You just learned to live with it. You just sat on, and you was like, well, when the water gets stirred up, somebody always gets to it before I do. And I just think about that in terms of even how we have decided to live not fully whole, right? Where we're just like, no, it's always like this. It's always going to be like this, right? Even some of the anxiety that you said, like, there are some people that just live with it. They don't even know that not having that level of anxiety is actually the norm. They think that everybody is struggling with, this level of, because there's so many people in this world, so we all have anxiety. I get you. But I do believe that there is healthy anxiety, and then there is unhealthy anxiety. And so what have you learned to live with?
my goodness. You said something very interesting that triggered a thought for me.
Come on now.
Maybe I don't pursue help, i.e. therapy, because I don't believe God will help me.
My God,
I'm
today.
not going to pursue something that leads to something unknown because I really don't have faith that God is going to do it. You know what? I'm going to stay in this tree. I'm going to stay on this mat, and I'm not even going to go because I've learned to be a paralytic.
Ooh. My God.
Yo.
But you have.
I'm a paralytic, bruh. I'm out here just can't move, can't walk, ankle broke, foot broke, everything broke.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. But is that not, like, I see it. Like, we could look around the church today and be like, bruck. You know what I'm saying? Like, bruck. Because we have learned to put this spiritual band-aid over it, where it's like, well, if God doesn't heal it, then it must have not been something that,
or it's my thorn.
But what if God has been speaking the whole time and giving you tools and giving you antiseptic? He's been giving you the ointment, and you're like, I don't need ointment. I will live with this broken leg because I've learned to live with it.
Okay. So I'm thinking about the fact that for those of us who sometimes we experience people to give us a prophetic word, a word of knowledge, word of wisdom, some type of encouragement, and we recognize, oh, the Lord had to have spoken to this person, because it's like, wow, that was on time, or that made sense, or it confirms, right? So there are those moments where someone speaks into our lives in some capacity, and it's like, wow, this has helped me do whatever.
Yeah.
But there are times when a person does not come, and it puts me in the mind of the woman with the issue of blood, bleeding for 12 years.
My God.
And was like, I'm going to crawl. Now, when I think about, because we are both women, how we don't have resources, or she didn't have resources, I'm assuming she did not, that we have, right? So if you are ceremonially unclean, I mean, nobody really wants to be around somebody who's bleeding on a regular basis. You're the sick girl. You're the bloody girl. Yuck.
Right.
That's how I'm thinking in 2026. And for you to crawl through a crowd, but for Jesus to identify that even the most insignificant part of his cloak, what happened? Virtue left from me, and she was made whole. That's a level of, I believe that God can help me in this thing. So I'm wondering about our level of intensity and passion and what we're willing to do to be well. Because part of me working towards being well also means that I have to not only say, they did it, it's them,
there you go,
and cry into somebody's shoulder. But it's also the fact that, Chanel, you were wrong too, sis. You've been wrong for 5 years. And you need to reframe your perspective about this particular person or these particular individuals. And this is how your posture has to shift. And this is how you have to show up in a room that's very different than how you used to show up. That's hard.
Yeah, but also there is no condemnation. So move in it. He shed light on it, right? You asked that question about shedding light on it, right? Whether you're seeing it as this, she a demon, he a demon, they a demon, right? Like the spiritual warfare that some people really do just call out daily, right? Like, oh, well, the devil is busy. The devil is busy, but also you're making the devil's job just a tad bit more easy, right? Because you are also not willing to become this new creation, right? So there are things that God has certainly shed light on, and I believe your healing is one of them, right? Whether that is natural healing, whether that is emotional healing, right? Spiritual healing, like whatever it is, that there are, just ordinary ways that God is like, yo, just how about you try this, right? We can't keep looking over and saying, okay, well, they hurt me, they did this, right? I think that there are things that I'm like, I gotta want it for myself.
Ooh, okay. So do you think that God works through means and miracles? So what I mean is, take it in. Therapy can be viewed as divine accompaniment. Lord, help me to speak, not a competition with our faith in Jesus Christ. Like, what are your thoughts about that?
So I think you touched on it, right? I think you got into it before you even asked this question, right? So, God often works through ordinary means as well as people, relationships, wisdom, medicine, and community, right? The ideal that God uses means simply acknowledges that divine care is frequently mediated through human actions and shared knowledge.
Ooh.
Right?
Okay.
Come on. So seeking counseling, medication, or professional support does not compete with faith. It can be one of the ways God's care becomes tangible in someone's life, right? So just as a doctor may help heal a physical wound, therapists and mental health professionals can help people understand and heal emotional wounds. Those are the means. So yes, we're looking for the big mountaintop, the big miracle moments. Fantastic, right? I believe that God still moves that way, right? But also in these ordinary moments where God is like, hey, but this therapist is going to be really good, and then speaks through someone. This therapist is really going to help you because they can also relate to you, right? The empathetic language comes out through your session, right? Because we talked about it being relational. Your healing is relational. So maybe that therapist was not the one for you, or maybe those services were not the one for you, but God is in tune with your healing.
I mean, I think the only thing that I can say is the prayer could be, Lord, help me to identify the means, the
Mm-hmm.
practical
There you
means
go.
of moving through wholeness.
Yes.
Because this ram in the bush moment is not always going to be the moment. This come up to the mountaintop and write these
Mm-hmm.
tablets. Like,
Girl.
that's not always going to be the moment. But it's like, Lord, help me to be sensitive enough to
Yes.
perceive. I'm
Yes.
not even going to say ordinary, because any confrontation of let me welcome you into wholeness is not ordinary. But Lord, help me to perceive the practical means where it's going to be transformative, because it
Yes.
legitimately is.
Yes.
Oof, that's all
We're
I have
talking
to
about
say about
practical
that.
tools,
Yeah.
right? We're talking about practical tools. And when we embrace those things together, right? So we're talking about our faith and we're talking about practical tools. We are able to pursue healing that honors not only our spiritual life, but our psychological well-being, right? Because I want to be whole. I don't know about you, but I want to be whole. And I don't want to have to wait until, like, I think, some of our predecessors, right? They that shall not be named, but like this otherworldly, like the healing will come on the other side. No, honey.
Yes.
God promised healing in this life. He promised healing in this life. I want it in this life. If it is within my reach, and God said it is within my reach, then I want it in this life. I will not live as a fragmented being.
Something that my therapist said was that, Chanel, I do not believe that, during this therapy process that you need to turn over every stone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every single thing does not need to be turned over. You don't need to overhaul everything.
Right.
But I think it goes back to the prayer of, Lord, will help me to see what I need to see.
Yes.
So that I need to deal with that, and not waiting to get to glory, get to heaven. Because I think that what also provides a level of like, where I may remain sedentary or I may not pursue becoming better or well, is because, well, listen, my name is in the Lamb's Book of Life. Okay? I'm going to heaven. I've accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And that's all that I need to do. And that was something that I read in a text about like just social justice, how some people do not engage in certain things because it's like, I don't need to do all of this. It's really giving too much because it's heaven for me. Okay, I'm heaven bound. But I think that realizing that we don't know how long we have on earth, but if you want it to be fruitful, if you want it to be transformational, then there's a part of you that says, yes, we thank God for glory, we thank God for eternal life, but also while I'm living down here, God help me. And we recognize we want to be sensitive that what's happening politically is a lot. It's very difficult. Even more reason why you need to go see a therapist. Hello?
Yeah, because you cannot bypass this thing.
Yeah.
Now, you might think that you can bypass this thing, but a part of me is like, but you're living a lie, right? If you're sitting there and the challenges that exist are all around you, right? And the challenges are just setting your body on fire. But yet the only time that you feel peace is when you come through the church doors, you're not whole. You're not whole. Right? Because I think when we look back, right, in terms of, just this otherworldly view, those in the past have come to the church building as a way to bypass what was happening out on those streets.
Correct.
Right?
And I think to honor our predecessors and to honor those who paid their lives for us to be free, I really want to make it very clear in this moment that I recognize that church was a representation of safety, literal safety. I'm probably going to get beaten. My life may end when I go back to this master's home. So I understand why we look at, I can't wait till I get here because this is our safe space. And that is beautiful. And I honor that. And I think that that is extremely important. In addition to that, you have to live life after service is over. Like, that's just what it is. And in order for me to live a life that I deem, before I close my eyes for the last time, I want to be able to say, wow, this was good. Not only because of the money that I earned or the house that I lived in, but like my heart is in a good place,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's sanctuary and strategy.
Ooh,
right?
I like that.
Okay. So what does love look like here?
Ooh, what does love look like? Honesty.
That's good.
I don't like cliches because I like to be as profound as I can be.
Huh.
But
Uh-huh.
if you don't say what it is, you'll never know how good it can be.
Okay.
So that's what love looks like. Honesty with yourself, honesty with God, and I mean honesty with a therapist. And if you don't have a therapist right now, someone who you know you can trust with your heart. Yeah. What about
That's
you?
good. I think love looks like reclamation. And a phrase just keeps coming into my head, and it is reclaiming my time, right? Like I just keep hearing Auntie Maxine saying, reclaiming my time.
Yeah.
Because I think that while we are here, our goal, right, is to get back to the Father, right? But also, like, what are we doing in the process? And so it looks like a reclamation of wholeness, because there was once a time when we were. And so I want to get back to that, like whatever that looks like, the tools, the people that he has surrounded me with. There you go. Reclaiming my time.
Say less. So before we go, we want to leave you with something to carry this week. And I want to leave you with that just because it's hard and it's painful does not mean that it does not get better. And the only way that it can get better is to invite God into it, while also embracing the fact that he may ask you to do hard things, and you may be confronted with having to have hard conversations so that it may be better. And just embrace it. Embrace it, because it will be well.
Received. I receive all of that. Same. And I want to leave you with joy. I want to leave our listeners with joy. I do believe that there is joy in healing. There is joy in this walk. So you walk this thing out. Yeah, there's uncomfortable, but there's also joy, because when you meet yourself on the other side, you're like, oh, I can actually do that.
Right. Yeah.
I can do hard things. Yeah.
For sure.
That's good.
So good.
All right. Well, join us every Sunday for a new episode.
Real conversations about faith, therapy, healing, boundaries, and all the things nobody warned us about.
Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast.
And please bring a friend, bring a sauce, somebody with you.
Come on, because this is Girls Need Love.